In- Hello everyone, welcome to this session on how to prevent your Odoo system from being hacked or ransomware. By the way, I'm Balaji Kannan. I'm CTO of Open Source Integrators. In today's world, we see that operating systems and applications are becoming more and more secure, but this has not taken away the problem. They are not impenetrable. We keep hearing more about attacks that happen and losses that happen in the world. The traditional solutions we have today and the protection mechanisms we have don't seem sufficient at all. And conflicting objectives do exist in organizations. When I mean conflicting, I mean the compromise between what is secure versus how to provide reasonable access to users. Ransomware. Let's understand what this means. It's a type of malware that locks down the system and makes all data inaccessible until a payment is made to the attacker. Does the payment guarantee that we'll gain back all our data? Not necessarily. 1 in 5, it seems, statistically shown, lose their data anyway. Even if they don't lose that data, there are other forms of loss that they have to accept and live with. Productivity loss that happens in the organization, the recovery costs of not just the data but also controlling the reputation damage that has happened. It can sometimes lead to heavy financial loss, lost opportunities and such, and it can even threaten the business's viability. So how did we arrive at this point in time? So what is ransomware? If we trace back a couple of decades ago, we had what were known as viruses, and they were attacking our DOS systems and our Windows systems predominantly. The servers were blissfully unaware of viruses, were much protected, but not anymore. This virus is transformed into spyware and trojans and rats, and eventually, in the past 5, 6 years, we have been hearing more about these ransomware, where somebody takes ransom or kidnaps your system and demands money to recover. So while in the earlier days, it used to be just your applications and some annoyance on your local DOS or Windows PC, it no longer is the same. With the advent of internet, it started affecting websites and more entire networks got affected. People, their other devices got affected. Now it's the supply chain that is getting affected. The loss that is happening because of this has compounded tremendously. If you look at the statistics that come out of the Internet Crime Complaint Center or the FBI, these statistics were released as of 2020. 2021 is in the works. We are expecting a much huge higher rate of loss and damage in 2021. We see that phishing, wishing, smishing, non-payments, extortion, there are many type of these crimes, and phishing seems to be the top, leading the other things by almost by 50%. More than 50% of the crimes are coming from that area. It takes action against vulnerable, gullible people who do not know what they are clicking. And this is still the majority of the population we have. So if you look at the number of complaints that have grown, we see that we are in billions of complaints, millions of complaints, and loss in multiple billions. So this is ever increasing. So what are we going to do about this? So in another study that has happened, 2018, of course, this reflects numbers from that year. But if we look at these numbers now, it still seems to be holding true. The pattern seems to be holding. Majority of the vulnerabilities stems from a lack of secure communication, lack of secure data, the TLS and SSL bad configuration on those, and data storage. Data storage is hacked. If we look at websites as such, cross-site scripting and vulnerable components within those website elements are the ones that are leading contributors to this problem, vulnerability problem. So if we look at what is the top 5 of all the vulnerabilities that contributed to 80% of our problems, we see that it is cross-site scripting, improper privilege management, improper input validations on the websites. Information disclosure is again an annoying thing. We keep hearing this often. Companies lose private data of customers. So, but if you look at it, it is only 6% of all the problems that are there. Memory corruption that happens, ransomware is one such thing that happens. It is projected that there would be 22,232 vulnerabilities, additional vulnerabilities of about 5,000 over the past year that are going to be seen in 2021. I believe we have already hit this limit this year. Which are the systems that get affected the most? It is not just operating systems, it is a combination of various components of any application system. Ubuntu, RHEL operating systems, Jenkins, Docker, container and CI/CD management tools, Nginx proxy tools, Node.js and Python components of various website and application systems. They are all part of these vulnerabilities. What I have here is just a list taken a couple of months ago as I was scanning this in the horizon. So the common actors of these vulnerabilities are usually the email phishing campaigns, RDP vulnerabilities, remote desktop protocol vulnerabilities, remote access vulnerabilities. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a Microsoft related thing. It's any kind of RDP that we are using, and software vulnerabilities. They form the majority of the actors. And how do they exploit this? They compromise your business email. They rob or steal the identity, ransomware, and spoofing and phishing. So these are the most common manifestations of the actors: email phishing, RDP vulnerabilities, and software vulnerabilities. Now let's understand how ransomware really works. A phishing email is received on a user's device. The user downloads an attachment, and this downloaded attachment, when opened, is going to create an OS exploit on the local system. So this has happened because the user clicked on an email, and this click downloaded a document from the web, and this document created an exploit locally, or created some malware installs and trojans locally. This trojan, what it does then is it goes out to the website again through another channel, which the user is oblivious to, not know what is happening there, and this downloads the ransomware. Once the ransomware is downloaded, we are almost gone. The system has been compromised, and it slowly starts encrypting your entire system. It could be your entire network. They spread across the network too, and the whole system becomes locked, and you can no longer access it. This is how the ransomware typically works. So how did this really happen? It was because of a single click a user on the network did on a phishing email. So this is very important to understand. So what's next? How do we overcome this? There are we could talk about many techniques. These are evolving as we talk about this. We already have a few more methods to protect ourselves. But again, let's understand the fundamentals of how to protect. An approach to protecting ourselves, our systems, application systems, and our business is called hardening. This is a process of limiting the potential weaknesses that makes the system vulnerable to cyber attacks. The Center for Internet Security, CIS as it is called, it's a consortium that has been put together by various tech organizations and companies out in the world. And they provide this hardening, they work on providing this hardening image. This is just a cooperative. There are also some commercial aspects to it, elements to it. If you want to avail of it, we can just be a passive user of these images, or we can actively contribute to the ecosystem by working on enhancing the mechanisms that are there. So how does this hardening really work? So it protects by providing controls, it safeguards by providing configuration guidelines, it secures by providing tools. So the controls needed to protect are defined by this consortium. The safeguards needed are provided through guidelines, and they also provide tools. The tools are provided by controlling the operating systems, databases, and applications. It is not just the operating system. It is not just, okay, let me protect my Linux system and I'm secure. No, it's just the first step. Your databases and applications need to be protected too. We need to take a holistic approach. A defense in depth is what hardening is all about. CAS, I've given some of the contributors on CAS. AWS, both commercial and gov cloud elements contribute heavily to the CAS. They work with the hardened images. Azure Cloud, Google Cloud Platform, and Oracle Cloud are all big time contributors and maintainers of the CAS. What is very important about this? This is a vendor agnostic system. We do not really care about whether it is Ubuntu or RHEL or Debian or Microsoft Windows. We are looking at protecting ourselves, and we do that by providing virtual images that have been hardened, benchmarks that are made available. Remember, we talked about configuration guidelines. So we need to know what those guidelines target, what kind of benchmarks, what are the industry standards, and what are these recognized, internationally recognized benchmarks. So this is what the Center for Internet Security really does. Operating systems hardening. Let's understand how we do this operating systems hardening. When we talk about this, it is not just Ubuntu or RHEL or Debian or Microsoft Windows 10 or version 11, which is coming out. Doesn't matter what they are. It also extends to other elements that sit on the operating system layers, like a proxy system, load balancer system, or even a database system. I have just shown some examples here: Ubuntu, RHEL, Nginx, and Postgres. How does this happen? The checklist typically talks about periodic updates, service packs, and patches, making you aware of vulnerabilities that exist and how to solve those vulnerabilities. Removing or disabling non-essential things that are on the system. File sharing and functionality. I want you to relate to the earlier information we talked about a few minutes ago about what contributes to the most vulnerabilities. You will see that this hardening is targeting at those peak or top 80% of the top 10 to 20% of the vulnerabilities that lead to 80% of the problems. Logging or monitoring of all activities, errors, and warnings is very important too. Educating users, training them to be aware of not clicking that phishing email that made the difference, right? Just that not clicking makes a big difference. So how do we educate these users, and how do we prevent? Again, prevention is the best cure we can have. Rather than scrambling around to fix problems, let us try and work at preventing the problems. So Linux, how do we? I'm giving here a list of many tips that can help harden Linux. The images that the CAS provides, these various service providers provide as hardened images, does address all of these that we have here. But if you're not sure, if you want to go and try certain things out, these are some of the checklist items you should keep in your mind, in your arsenal when you set up a new system as such. If you look at it, it talks everything about encrypting data to physical server security, to avoiding unnecessary services like FTP or Telnet or RLogin, X11 services and systems. We do not need those at all anymore in the modern world. So why do we have to keep them running? We do not want to go and install a default Linux desktop system and install a server application on it, while this machine would never be used for a desktop purpose. All the desktop elements are redundant and multiple ways for somebody to hack into the system. So we need to avoid that. Some more of those tips, as we can see here. Backups. We even talk about backups. it seems like, hey, why is this called a hardened image, right? It is not a hardened image. The image provides us with tools. Unless we follow the configuration guidelines that are defined, we are not complete in our hardening process. We do need to do all of them. It is all or nothing scenario here. We cannot do some and hope to achieve full security. We need to do everything that is listed here. When we talk about database hardening principles, we do need to understand that database security doesn't exist in a silo. It is not something that can be achieved without addressing physical security, without addressing user workstation security, without addressing change management processes, without having a good database backup and recovery process. This is very important. Now, coming to very specifically talking about Odoo here. Odoo as an application has made leaps and strides in managing security proactively and in a preventive manner. Of course, there is always a little catch up that we all, as part of the Odoo ecosystem, have to do and help Odoo as a system, as an ecosystem, be the most secure thing out there. The vulnerabilities that Odoo was exposed to through testing, various hackers and others are provided by Odoo, and we can see that detail in this vulnerabilities link that we have. Odoo's product security disclosures are also available for everyone, and it is openly available. You can go to the website odoo.com/security report to see that information. We need to know how to secure containers. Containers, the more compact we are, the more black box we are, the more it seems we get security. But it is not a given. It cannot be assumed. So we need to understand how to achieve the application hardening if we choose a containerization method. We also need to understand how external tools and systems like Nginx or a Cloudflare will help us be more secure, will provide this additional layer that we need for security. There are multiple tools that are available. I've just given a few of these here. We can see that there are runtime application self-protection tools or web application firewall tools. Both are equally powerful. Their target systems and areas are very different. Kubler is another tool that helps containers be more secure. Just use of tools and procedures and following guidelines is not going to be sufficient. We need to make sure that we audit and we assess our system to be secure at all times. We need to do this periodically. What that periodicity is can depend on your organization and how complex your systems are. There are a number of tools that are available, and I have listed a few that I have used and found very effective in understanding or assessing the systems. Linus, OpenSCAP, or Nix Auditor. Odoo Cloud, Odoo, we know, as we know, we could use the SaaS implementation of Odoo. We could use the Odoo.sh implementation of Odoo, or we could do our own on-site or on the cloud self-hosting the enterprise or the community editions of Odoo. Odoo Cloud, they have listed a number of vulnerabilities as we saw in the earlier slide. Vulnerabilities are known and they have been addressed. A lot of them have been addressed already, and it is a continuous process. It's not a one-time process. It's continuous. Of all these, I've tried to group these vulnerabilities into various areas, and I found this malicious file execution is one thing that we need to be most aware of. We are constantly, the system is great, it is having tools and mechanisms in place, but again, if we upload a bad file into the server, if we extend the system, customize it, and as we do this, we provide a gap there. This seems to be one of the most critical vulnerabilities we need to address when we are working with the Odoo Cloud. Looking at threats, the physical security is always a threat, irrespective of where and what we do, right? Who does it or what is being done. Physical security is always a threat. Odoo is assessing constantly, and in all their servers, they are doing this. But again, we need to be aware that the staff access to our systems on Odoo Cloud is a vulnerability our systems have. All said and done, we have to go with the guarantees, and it can be a huge, steep financial penalties if these vulnerabilities become threats and an event happens. Odoo has a trusted cloud, but remember that it is non-ITAR. For those of you who are in the United States, you will understand what ITAR restrictions mean and the SOX compliance that is needed for all financial systems. Odoo does not provide the cloud systems that Odoo Cloud runs on are non-ITAR and SOX compliant. So we need to be aware of that. Odoo does provide an application system that is PCI compliant, but again, it is not certified. Should Odoo certify this? Should you certify this? In fact, there is another great presentation that we have made that talks about PCI compliance. We do need to get it certified, or we need to keep doing this certification or assessments and make sure that we are complying with PCI. PCI again is a cooperative consortium that we need to really work with. The standards that Odoo conform to are CSA level 1. Of course, there is level 1 and level 2. Odoo is not doing level 2. Level 2 is audit and monitoring, which is not being done. But level 1 is certified. Well, level 1 assessment is applied to the Odoo Cloud. So if you are self-hosting, these are the various things we can use to protect ourselves as we build, operate, and keep monitoring, right? We need to select a secure cloud which will address some of the requirements we need, like PCI or SOX or ITAR requirements. It needs to support authentication and multi-factor authentication. There needs to be some redundancy built in. Managed databases are much better than you installing a Postgres database and managing it yourself. Use of hardened images and such. Having a disaster recovery in place. All these contribute to a very secure Odoo enterprise. Some of the best practices, again, I'm reiterating some of these. Having multi-factor authentication, patching systems and updating, monitoring them periodically, review and exercising your disaster recovery plan. A plan, yes, I have a plan, is not a solution. Yes, I have a plan and it is tested and it is working, is the right solution we should be looking for. And the most important thing, I follow it very religiously every single day in my working life. I have done it these so many years. I turn off my computer at the end of the day. Whatever is in memory is lost, it's clean, it's gone. I start up good and clean next day. It keeps my machine performing at the best way it can, right? And I monitor and keep my antivirus software updated. I keep my patches updated. I don't let the systems automatically update. I monitor it every single week, every single month. I make sure my systems are secure at all times. Thank you for listening to this session. I would, if there are questions, you know where to reach me, Kannan at opensourceintegrators.com, or of course you could visit our website and contact us.
So hello everyone and welcome to another live session. We're here in Odoo Experience. We have Balaji. Balaji, thank you so much for being here and for your presentation.
Thank you, Edward.
Amazing stuff. So yeah, the security, it is one of the main topics in the internet, and a lot of customers fear and don't want to go live, and they don't want to move into an ecosystem online because they fear this. But we do have a question here from Gene. He says, what are the sources of these statistics that you presented right now?
Yep. The great question, by the way. Thank you, Gene. The question, the statistics are coming from the local source here in the US, which is something which can be verified very easily in the public domain. It's coming from CISA, an organization that is funded and tracked by the federal government, and the FBI. The Center of Internet Statistics from the FBI is where I have generated these numbers. These numbers are just to show a trend and not to claim any absolute numbers. I'm not saying, hey, only 20,000 hacks happened in the past year or so.
Right.
And if you remember, this is coming from only the US, and it is not tracking the global wide statistics. Global wide statistics, we have a problem. We can get data from Europe and the US, and rest of the world, it's a black box. We really do not
We
know
don't know.
what is happening out there. It could be that they are very safe. Let's assume they are really safe. The other possibility is they are safeguarding the information to let others know that they're being hacked and to pave a way for further more future attacks. So I think the statistics show a trend rather than looking at those absolute numbers. Let's look at them as a trend and see, hey, there is a long way to go. Whatever protection you can do today is going to deter these hackers and people, the bad elements out there. It's going to deter them.
Exactly. Yeah, we can never be sure because, as you said, a lot of people don't report, right? They don't report because they might feel they lose credibility with their clients,
Clients,
and that is
absolutely.
amazing topic. But yeah, thank you so much for the talk. Thank you so much. I know that you're gonna be here on a next meeting. So everyone, if you want to talk directly to Balaji and have a quick chat about security, feel free to jump into that meeting. And as always, thank you so much for the talk and have a nice one.
Thank you, Edward, for this great opportunity that I have. And thank you to all the viewers out there.